All right, Shell, thanks very much. Okay, let's welcome our guest for the day, Parag Parikh. He's a market veteran, of course, well known across the markets. Thanks, Mr. Parikh, for coming by. My first question to you, just heard when I was reading out the headlines, very mixed views coming. There is one, entity, a giant, which thinks that we'll be at 30,000 on the Sensex 18 months down the line, and other thinks that, we're just losing our way. Which side do you stand?
I'm equally confused, and I hope I knew where the markets would go. But it's only when markets are bad that you have good opportunities in buying good businesses which are available at good valuations. So if you are a long-term investor, you'd be looking at opportunities coming your way.
We've seen a fairly sharp correction, and in fact we're even seeing FIIs perhaps booking profits and taking money back. How would you read these developments? Because I think one of the triggers that happened was the sharp rise in the interest rates by the RBI. Many already expected it, but perhaps didn't expect it to be that strong a measure. So if you were to look at the more larger picture as far as India is concerned, the economic growth has been pared down. Everybody was talking 9%. Now everybody accepts 8% or even lower. You've got interest rates, the inflation factor. So in that backdrop, Mr. Parikh, if you were to look at the broader direction of the markets, of course we can't predict where they're going to go, but what would that be?
But see, at every point of time, we have a different reference point to act on. Now, fiscal deficit is also a big thing, but just now nobody is talking about it. So sometimes what happens that, people want to attribute a reason to something happening, and then they start to put the fixes in place, So I would say that we are all, saying the full world is in turbulent times, and you're going to have these ups and downs. Now, if you are an investor, you are bound to lose when you start trying to bet on the markets on a daily basis or a weekly basis or a monthly basis, because investment is all about long term. But today what has happened that people are trying to find the best, the next stock which will go up or which will go down. I think that's the mistake retail investors are making,
Do you believe that at these levels, considering that over the last few years, it's really the retail investors who never made money in the growth of the market, everybody else made money, it's just the retail investor who always ends up coming when the market is at its peak and then falls. At these levels, for the next 3 years, 2 to 3 years, there are enough good stories out there that you would say are worthy of picking up?
Well, first is retail investors. I wouldn't call them retail investors, because if you are an investor, traders or punters.
Punters,
absolutely. Because if they were really investors, I don't think they would have lost money, because you try to get in and out. On the contrary, if you ask me, I think the retail investors are becoming smart. Because look at the IPOs, this thing, lukewarm responses, they are bombing. I think that's a very positive sign, Because when does a company come out with a public issue? Because when the management feels that you have investors willing to pay stupid prices for the stocks you own, that's why we want to offload. Well, investors are becoming smart.
Is the fact that many of them are today coming through the systematic investment planning route. Is that another sign according to you?
Yes,
they are getting
definitely.
smarter?
There is maturity coming in.
So, Mr. Parikh, I'll get back to a couple of things that you raised here. First is that IPO question. You do see, nevertheless, that a lot of these smaller IPOs get, attention which is perhaps unwarranted given the fundamentals of the ratings that you might look at that they are awarded. And, then we've had this news of the last few hours talking about some which are getting withdrawn, some which you would have thought had strong fundamentals, not even getting enough response during the IPO stage. So people are still obviously making mistakes when it comes to picking and choosing IPOs. What should you be looking at? When you look at a small IPO, people are thinking, if I take a big risk, there are handsome returns. But that's obviously not working. What are you looking at that's the right approach?
Well, first, if you ask me, IPOs is a big no, for the simple reason that when does a company management wants to sell off its own shares? When it's getting a price which is very fancy. That's why IPOs always come in bull markets, they never come in bear markets. Because if they come in bear markets, the investors will make money. Secondly, that still we have an institution memory of IPO means initial public offering, so you are getting it cheap and you'll make money. No more today, because everything is priced at the market price, So how are you going to make any money? And if I have 7,000 stocks in the listed on the market, 1-2 IPOs coming, it should not actually bother me.
Okay, I was also looking at the kind of stocks that you're covering right now and your opinion on those. So there's a lot of these healthcare stocks that are on the list of what you're covering. If I were to just go through some of them, there's Aventis, there's Novartis, Piramal, Wyeth, all of these. We are seeing almost every second day there's some news on some big deal that one of these at least is striking. So what, according to you, is the best strength that a lot of these Indian pharma companies are exhibiting? So what should, again, an investor look at in terms of picking healthcare stocks? What's the strength they should be identifying and going after?
Yes, maybe all the stocks which you mentioned, we have them in our portfolio. We have followed, but we never bought them for some event happening or anything. We always like the good business models. They're run by good, credible management. And that's how we bought the stocks. And over a period of 2-3 years, you have so many ups and downs coming. But we stay invested because one is we believe in the business model. We believe that it is a sustainable business. So I think stock picking is all about really doing a bottom-up stock picking is where you are buying businesses which have a good moat around them, which are run by credible management. Of course, management is very important.
So when you talk of a credible business model, should you go after people who are banking on the US generics market, or the Indian story based on population and therefore numbers which will drive consumption of medicines here?
I think there the patent laws and all are just pretty strict. Over here it is much better. So I think we would prefer those multinationals who are doing business in India. And if you mention Wyeth and all, is because we believe that today preventive medicine would be more in the limelight rather than curative medicine. That's why we go in for vaccines and all. That is, this is how we look at the business of pharmaceuticals.
You mentioned stock picking, Parag Bhai. What is the, are you currently at this point of time in your portfolio, say the last 1 month, have you enhanced your holdings in certain stocks or cut them in certain stocks?
No, we have not at least cut them. Okay. We have been in cash, and when good values emerge, we start getting into it. And see, actually investing is a very dull and a tiring game, not the way it's made out to be. So there are times just now when you see your stocks going down and all, you got to have the patience. Right. See, here it is all about patience and your conviction in what you have bought, what business you have bought.
You're one person who's probably seen the rise and the growth of a company like a Reliance Industries, a bellwether for the market, a bellwether for a lot of investors. I am again picking on the point that you made to stick it out. Today there are people who are saying that look at this stock, it's gone below 900. It's a company which is losing its charm. Should you be in it, out of it? An investor like you would still remain there and remain
No, I was never into Reliance, so I don't think so. And we don't track it.
Okay. So what about the oil pack? Again, a whole space which is so determined by the way the government thinks or some minister thinks, right? You'll have a story, a source space coming out, no clarification from the government, and the stocks will move 6%, 7%. Do you stay out of such sectors?
Yes, definitely, because everything depends upon what the government says. So I may find a good, like HBCL, BPCL, we like those stocks, but ultimately nothing happened with those stocks because there was interference.
What about the whole banking space? It was a darling last year. Again, lots of tectonic changes happening there. I mean, sharp hike in interest rates, continuing, it's expected that will continue. Again, coming back to the point that you made, that if you like a particular sector, you stay with it for some time. Are you still staying with banking?
No, as I told you, for me, it's not the banking sector. For me, it's a good bank like HDFC Bank, I would stay there. Okay. But some of these PSU banks, another loan waiver comes and all my calculations go haywire.
Okay. So what are those 3 or 4 stocks that you really like right now?
Well, I like Noida Toll Bridge. It's a good business model. Cars go left, right, they get a toll.
Right.
It came out with an initial public offering. It was a greenfield project about in 1997. All the bad times have gone through, and now it is the creditors are being slowly paid off. It declared an interim dividend last year. Slowly things are changing, And now it does not require to take money from the shareholders. It will give back to the shareholders.
Right. What about other infrastructure stocks? I mean, these are long gestation projects, right? And you need to be able to be with them for some time.
No, I don't like infrastructure.
You don't like it?
As an industry. But I like Noida. It is one thing.
Because
after 13 years I am buying that stock.
Is it because you are seeing an execution on the ground and otherwise you have a question mark? Will they be able to execute?
Because the gestation period is over.
Okay.
All the initial investors, now they are getting out, and I would prefer to be over here then.
Okay.
So if I can touch upon, you said you like Noida Toll Bridge because there's always car traffic and you bank upon that. So let me bring in the entire auto space. You've had some short-term triggers over here. Then there's the longer-term story. So we've heard that those peak volumes of car sales are coming off now. Secondly, there is this shorter term impact of what's happened in Japan, therefore the supply of auto components. So for instance, we're hearing today that Japan will ask for electricity cuts in that country, something unheard of I think in Japan, more than 50% electricity cuts. They will not be able to produce as much components. So what's your assessment of what's going on with this space? Because everyone's going to be looking at it and trying to figure out the balance of these factors.
I think it's good these things are happening because we don't have enough roads for the cars which are coming on the road. So I think it's a positive. And if you saw today, Toyota has announced that okay, we are back into production. So all these are just news coming in and all. I think that for investment decisions, you should not be swayed by all these short-term fluctuations.
Right.
Apart from Noida Toll Bridge, what do you like?
Well, we like Emphasis also. Then
you are not concerned about the developments with HP?
All these things are going to happen. Vivek, you are not going to be in the pink of health every day.
Absolutely.
One day you will have a headache, the other day you will have a cold. It doesn't mean that you are useless. Here, the way the people start selling stocks as if everything is over. It's a big company. It's got HP as its parent, and HP. Yes, they are going through tough times. Like today, what has happened with the iPad sales? They think most of the PCs have taken a beating. Now, this is a part of the business game.
Right. But you still hold the belief?
Yes, 100%.
You do?
Yes, definitely.
What about stocks like Infosys? Again, a question mark which has given NRN sleepless nights, he says.
See, I see a very big difference. There may be a very good company, but it may be a bad stock to buy. Like Infosys was a very good company in 2000. But a bad stock to buy in 2000, So you got to understand that what value you are paying for the business. And secondly, some business go through the pangs like what Infosys is going,
Parag, in 2008, you were talking very excitedly about the shipbuilding industry, given that India's share of the global industry was rising phenomenally. But then things changed in terms of overall business and how much, ships were moving from country to country, continent to continent. Has your assessment of the sector and whatever companies you liked at that time, has that changed in the past 3 years?
Well, just now, I think there are much more exciting stories to go after. So I think it takes a benefit because every time you don't go right. But the shipbuilding, we thought it will be there because in all throughout the world, this is what happens. It didn't happen over here in a big way.
And what about offshoring related to that space? You were already mentioning that, the probability of an offshoring company striking it right at the end of the day was only about 2% given all your calculations. So how does one assess that space today?
Not much. I wouldn't do this thing.
You would stay away from it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You said Noida Toll Bridge, Emphasis, any other 2 or 3 companies that you really like?
We like the business model of ILNFS Investment Manager also. Okay. It's a PE fund and it's got good experience in the markets. They get the money, they invest it on behalf of the clients, they get their 1.5 to 2%. And this money is there for a longer period of 7 to 10 years. Okay. So it's a model which we can understand. So much money they've got, so much income will come, so much they will give to the shareholders. And of course, just now that company is passing through bad times because they had invested in DB Realty. Right. And if you are in infrastructure play, if you are into real estate play, and if you are investing in different companies, DB Realty would have come, Now that doesn't mean that the company, this thing has to be punished so much the way the people are throwing up their stocks.
Which real estate company are you in and are you
No, I never liked real estate companies.
Never liked?
No, never liked real estate.
Because you're of the view, buy the real estate, don't buy.
Yeah, because today real estate in our country, we know that this saying cash changes hands in real estate. Yes. So how do I know whether the balance sheet of any real estate company is right?
Is there a telecom company you own? And
no,
you don't?
When my mobile bills are every day going down, why should I buy a telecom company?
Okay. On that note, Parag Parikh, thank you very much. Always a pleasure having you.
Thanks very much,
Thank you. Bye.
All right, we slip into a short break. Well, you got those views, you got those stock ideas, and more importantly, how you should go about investing from Parag Parikh. Take a short break, we come back and take your stock-specific questions.